just get on film a little bit of this last healing crisis.
Okay.
And it's like I don't want to forget it. Almost like, like this, I went through this really challenging experience that I didn't expect. All of a sudden, it happened within a couple hours, that you're healthy and you're vibrant and you're moving freely, and somebody would say to you, "You look great," and then all of a sudden your hips are out of alignment and your head is chronic pain and trauma's being ready to release. And it was like, really? And bam, I wonder if, some of our great leaders, if you go back and you ask them, how many times did you go through something and then you thought, it's okay, and then, so I just wanted to, what this confirmed, this 3 weeks of healing trauma out of my body from my childhood abuse, is it really is a testimony to the sciences I work with.
Okay.
I think it was another, I always say that I'm a healer that was trained by Source, God, Jesus. Those are the sources I believe in. Maybe somebody believes in other things, but they were the ones guiding me through every health crisis, every healing crisis, and I've had a lot of them. People see me as vibrant, but when they read my book, they're like, wow, you've suffered a lot of pain and a lot of physical pain. And that physical pain was information. And unfortunately, nobody wants to hear about childhood abuse. Nobody wants to hear about a child being attacked, over and over again, whether it's my situation or hit over and over again, or raped over and over again, and through that, depending on if it's chronic, it's not just an emotional, mental thing anymore. It's an actual tissue thing. It's stored. Those memories and feelings are stored in the organs in the body. And that's what is so fascinating to me. And it's really when you set up the right scenario. So for me, I had just moved into a new home where I felt safe, really for the first time. And I had one of my yoga students actually renting a room that was a father figure to me. So protective energy was in the space. And so it was really like divine intervention of like, here, we're going to take out the rest of the trauma.
Right.
And we're going to release it.
How old were you? Well, I guess I shouldn't ask a woman her age, but you said you felt safe for the first time.
I'm 47 years old.
So for the first time in your life, you felt safe?
Yes.
And partly that has to do with releasing trauma out of my body, because the trauma affects the mind, and the mind, I had complex PTSD. So whether I'm in an environment, an apartment complex where there's a lot of negativity and fighting, and that triggers me without even consciously knowing it. So yeah, but I will honestly say that, yeah, it was the first time.
Wow. And how did you deal with it prior? Was that living in...
I think a lot of women live in fear for a lot of different reasons.
Okay.
And it's something that's been a conversation in the last year because of just some of the issues in the United States happening. And I talk to a lot of women, they say, yeah, men have no idea that we walk out of our house in fear every day.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you list a few of those fears that a woman may have when she walks out of her home?
Well, I think part of it is realistically rape, because all the rape clients, a lot of them, let's say 90% that I worked with, they were screaming at the top of their lungs, no. So no in a program for a man does not mean the same thing as it does for a woman. They have disrespected and disregarded that. So when we talk right now about the feminine trying to gain, whether that's the feminine in the male or the woman, their power back, there's a truth to that. For so many centuries, we were dismissed and thrown and murdered. And so there's a programming in our DNA even of when we step out, the comments, the glares, the energy that somebody is sending to you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought about that, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was situational. So just coming out to your door on the way to work, a woman wouldn't be fearful. But if she was on a date with someone that she met online, then she'll be fearful of something potentially happening.
Oh no, women are fearful of going to the grocery store and going out into the parking lot in the dark. And everyday things. And I think it is important for men to hear that and understand that more. And like I said again, the other problem I have with that, and this is being a leader, is that it's not just that we have a fear-based energy with walls and we're dealing with a nervous system that's weak. But we're like, some of my clients were in apartment complexes screaming for their life and nobody called 911. You hear that over and over again. You see somebody on the street being hit and nobody's stepping in. You see somebody, so it's like, we have become isolated. That's their problem.
Right.
It's none of my business. Where I'm the opposite now. I step into the war zone because I would want somebody to step into my war zone. And when you study the yogic philosophies and you live them, and at the end of the day you believe them, then you know that you can't just turn your head when you see somebody in a crisis. Just because it's safer or comfortable doesn't mean that it's the human thing to do.
So as a male, what can I do on a daily basis to bring awareness to some of the fears that women may have when I'm amongst other men?
Well, I was just going to say, the biggest thing you can do is when you hear or see a man be disrespectful, to try to eloquently, and it's hard between, to step in and say, calm yourself down, look, I don't think that's right. And we, like I said, we have a very strong DNA that it's none of our business. We have to teach people that if we want a world of love, a community of love, a safe environment of respect, that it's got to become our business. Right. So I think small things make a big difference.
Sure.
Even being at a restaurant or a bar, and I've gone to a restaurant or a bar, and maybe I'm working, I'm reading a book, and a man will make a comment to me, and it's like, did you really hear what you said? The tone of your voice, your arrogance, and why are you invading my space that way? What do you really want from me?
Right. So first things first, speak up.
Speak up.
Do you think that person who invades your space, who's highly narcissistic, how would that person come to their own? Because I can speak up, but it's still the responsibility of the person ultimately to make a change within them. In addition to that, what would a person need to have happen? Because some behaviors are so programmed in us because of the society that we're part of.
I think you're speaking up for the victim.
Okay.
So I think, inevitably you're not going to convince a narcissist. Yeah, right up. Having been raised by a narcissist, a very good one, you're not going to change, probably. Depends on, it can happen. I want to give you a story about that in a minute.
The likelihood of it happening.
But the likelihood of it, you're there to show the victim that somebody cares from the outside, and to acknowledge that the behavior is improper because they're so conditioned and beaten up to think it's okay, that when a stranger says it's not okay, you may wake up that victim, and that victim may leave that relationship.
Okay. So it's not about conversion, it's about caring and compassion for the victim.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a story in our teacher training book Yogi Bhajan shares, and it's on the conscious communication course, and it's about this person who's murdered a lot of people, and he's in jail, and he escapes, and they're on the lookout for him, and he's got a record, and he's killed a bunch of people escaping as well, so very dangerous, and he's I don't know if he's in a home or an apartment with a woman, and he has her trapped, and she goes for 7 hours with him, and they have these conversations at the kitchen table, and basically the conversations is that she knew that she probably wasn't going to get out of there alive. So she decided to treat him as a human being. And she spoke to him in a way of trying to counsel him and tell him that he's not a bad person. And he kept saying, I've done awful things, I'm a bad person. And she kept saying, you're not a bad person. This is, you can do the right thing today. Mm-hmm. You can change today. And all the past, well, you have to pay a consequence for it. She wasn't saying that. And through the process of the 7 hours, he let her free. And then he gave up, he called himself in. And he said she was the first person he felt love from.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it also, I think when you're speaking up, we can tell when somebody's speaking up and judging us, or we can speak up with compassion and a grace of trying to say, do the right thing.
It's not only programming and conditioning and narcissism and all that other stuff. There is some male privilege there. Mm-hmm. And there's also paranoia on the male part that says women are taking over. Every time a group take up a cause, another group has to take opposition because they feel automatically that group is taking away their rights.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel like a person can be so privileged that equality can feel like oppression. How do we deal with that? That lifting up women doesn't have to happen at the expense of diminishing men.
Just because women are now in position to take lead, which I think is a long time coming, that doesn't mean that us as males are going to be extinct. Life is going to get better. When other communities join in, whether it's the transgender community or the LGBT, I think life gets better. Mm-hmm. I think society on the whole gets better. So why do we have to think that, life as we know it is going to end because it could be a woman president soon? Like, we can't be that. We have to be better than that. We really can't think that life, because we've all had experiences where women have been in lead positions and life went on. It could have been a better situation, it could have been a worse situation, but if it was worse, it wasn't because that person was a woman.
Right. I think when people are in tribes, it's fear-based. So I grew up in a very specific biological tribe, and I had a very rigid and limited programming for a lot of years. So I think that I understand that fear-based. Okay. What do we do with that? It depends. When it comes to feminine power or leadership, there's a couple things that are unfolding. I think that there's a lot of men that haven't healed their abuse and their trauma, and because of that, they're very limited and scared. So they want to keep what they know. And I think their power is in, I'm strong, I'm physically strong, look at me, But that's really, I find when a lot of men come to me, that's a mask. And when you take that mask off, they're actually they develop their feminine side, their intimate side. They wish that they had been loved more by their mothers. Their mothers were kinder. So I think that part of maybe some men resisting the feminine coming up is because of their relationship with the feminine that needs to be healed, as well as the feminine's relationship with the man, the archetype, so that there becomes a balance between masculine and feminine in each of us. I was very masculine for many years. We live in a masculine society. We can say that from the stats of leadership for women, women's equality and pay, and the positions women have had in the government, and also, just stats don't lie. So we don't have equality. Right. That's just the stats. But with that said, that forced a lot of my generation to have to be masculine and hide and develop our feminine. And now we're like both sides are trying to heal and adjust this. And that takes a lot. That's like a big paradigm shift. Yogi Bhajan, who's one of my teachers, you know, he used to do summer camps. He would do 3 weeks for women and 4 days for men. And people were like, why only 4 days for men? And he was like, because women are, this is his quote, 16 times stronger than a man, because we create life, like that in itself, that energy, that discipline, that pain to endure, to give life, and just the way we're wired differently. I'm always going to be in the room and know, okay, there's kids in the corner there, are they safe? It's like a kind of a programming that we do have. And I think the reason why we're calling upon the feminine energy to come into leadership more in this country, I can only hope that women will be less greedy, more concerned about the welfare of our children, all children, not just my children, not just those children, but all children's safety and education, that they're fed, that they're warm. And unfortunately, and we all have that. So a woman could be in leadership and be running on the patriotic archetype and be a dictator. So we have to heal that feminine who's really collectively consciousness and brings back the family unit. I mean, let's face it, in the United States, the divorce rate is like, 72%. It's ridiculous. And families are broken. That's the statement in the barrier between the man and the woman. You know what I mean? And we're like, now what's really cool in my profession is not only do I work with trauma, I work with families. So I get to rewire the man and the woman and bring them into equal partnership, which is so liberating and empowering, and watch how they're helping the next generation do differently.
So let's see if we can dig a little deeper. When you say you had to be masculine, you're saying to me, and I'm asking, I had to be more assertive, I had to be more aggressive, I had to be more vocal, I had to push myself through situations physically and maybe let my presence be felt. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think I was angry.
I was extremely angry in my 20s. I was masculine. I was in show business, but I was also in a male-dominated field, tap dancing. So I was around men all day long. Some of them were wonderful, but still, they were men, and I was a woman, and that was clear. So, assertive, but masked. You know, and angry, and short-tempered, and I didn't have warmth. I didn't have compassion. I didn't have empathy.
Because I think when you say that, the women who took on that masculine role were mimicking behaviors from men that we shouldn't have possessed in the first place.
I agree.
Those are not strong traits.
They're not.
What strong traits are what you were talking about. Walking into a room and being able to see kids here and being aware that, hey, if something happens, I'm going to jump into action. Or, being vulnerable, not holding your feelings back. So we got it. So we started it first, and then women said, well, we're going to mimic you because society says this is how we have to be. So now women are saying, no, screw that. We're not following you all because you all had it wrong from the get-go. So now we're going to switch it back. And now we find men either wanting to get back to that because now we're realizing that that's how it should have been from the start. And you also have some men who are opposing that because they don't know what.
And I will say really good points. And you're one of the higher conscious men, so it's so exciting to be with you. But I will say up until probably a year ago,
a lot of my world was around that sort of lower shadow, that shadow archetype of the man. And so through the end of my healings and me coming more into my feminine, what did I do? I attracted higher conscious men who were healing and doing the work and having compassion. And now it's fascinating. I remember the first time having a conversation with a podcast person in California and this person there, these men, I was like, I wasn't used to it. I wasn't used to the respect. I wasn't used to people asking me questions and caring about what I had to say. I wasn't used to their energy being loving and them admiring my journey. I was a little like, oh. And then the more each man that I got to experience that with, the more comfortable I was with it, and the more I craved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tribalism. I can't stand it.
I know.
We should be tribal to some degree because we're human beings, but I think there should be a line drawn. I think as a person in this society, as a male, I look at things one way. When I am constantly around a group of males or a group of people who may think a certain way, I tend, if I'm not super conscious, to lean towards that method of thinking. I think it's dangerous when you have a group of people who all get into one mode of thinking.
Yeah.
I think we talk about diversity in terms of gender, we talk about diversity in terms of race and class, but we don't talk enough about diversity in terms of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And so tribalism, I think, is one of the main reasons why some of the isms still exist, because within the crowd and company that people are holding on to, there's no one saying, I don't think we ought to be doing that.
I think that's an excellent point. And my profession has given me the gift to work with collectively all types of people. And I think that's benefited me a lot.
That's right.
It's benefited me. So I've had people that have voted for the opposite president as me, and I've had conversations about that allowed me to understand their perspective and then I've had and then just to have room of conversation where we're not antagonizing each other, but there's a form of respect.
Right.
So I feel like I've been able to grow because I've been so lucky to have a diverse group of people come in. I've worked with construction, not that the career or the vocation changes, but I've worked with construction workers, I've worked with lawyers, I've worked with doctors, I've worked with psychiatrists, I've worked with nurses, I've worked with school teachers, I've worked with poor people, I've worked with rich people, I've worked with, and so it really I've worked with Republicans, I've worked with Democrats, I've worked with liberals, I've worked with, and it just really, and I do think for me, what I like that. Yogi Bhajan's best friend, they used to sit at dinner and discuss, and they never agreed.
Okay.
But they were really good friends and respected each other. And I think there's a value, like for me as I grow my team, my business team, I don't want everyone that thinks like me. I want people to think or look at something differently and say, well, what if you did it this way? I want that.
Right.
That's how we grow and evolve. Right. So I think it's important.
How are we going to evolve if we're not challenged?
Yeah.
And we talked about comfort a little while ago. That's being comfortable. When you subconsciously or consciously put yourself in situations where you're around like-minded people, you're putting yourself in a comfortable situation where you're never going to get challenged on how you feel and think and some of the things you say about certain things in life. And I think that's dangerous.
And I think we all do that to some extent at some point, and then we hit a point. Now, I know you've done that. I know you left your job recently, which was a big deal. And what I wanted to ask, I'm switching the table, but I wanted to ask you, what so far, because I know it's early on, have you sort of realized in, leaving your job, which is a big deal?
If I could be frank, I was basically just prostituting myself.
Really?
For a check.
Yeah.
Anytime you do something in life, and you're doing it not because you love it or the passion or you feel it's purposeful, we're being horrible.
That's really great.
And I'm just telling you.
Yeah, you're right. It's real.
And people could disagree with me, but that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I never want to be in a position where I am doing something just for a paycheck. if I'm doing something 50%, 75%, I'm not giving it my all, I'm just doing it, a perfunctory job, that hurts.
So what allowed you to leave your job? Did you hit rock bottom?
I functioned well because I adopted this mentality that this is not going to get the best of me, even though every time I said it and every time I walked into my job, it got the best of me. So I was lying to myself, I was lying to other people that I was working with. And when you lie to yourself and the job is getting the best of you, that can only go on for so long before you really hit rock bottom. See, if you hit rock bottom to the point where you're shrugging it off and you're saying, I'm going to go back, that's rock bottom. That's not rock.
Right.
Rock bottom it's in your face, that reality, that mirror. There are no more lies. There's no more masquerading. There's no more energy because it's all been depleted. There's no more effort to do the work or to get out of bed. Rock bottom is rock bottom. Like, you don't have the energy to lie like you did for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, I got to rock bottom. And everything was just out of me. And this is my fault, Heather. This is not my job's fault. This is my fault because I knew this for some time. And I allowed myself to be hoarded out because I was afraid. I was attracted and addicted to the salary. I was complacent. I was incredibly comfortable. I was content. Even though I knew for years I had no business being there. But I didn't have a plan. I put the onus on my career path on other people. You don't step out and take a leap of faith. We say that, it sounds really good, but when the rubber hits the road, I have bills to pay. Other people have bills to pay. So you don't think about what potentially can happen when you leave because you're so paralyzed by fear.
Right. I was watching, if you don't mind me interrupting, but I was watching one of my students who spent 50 years in traditional careers of construction and high-end construction and building houses and all that, was very, very good at it, and did all this spiritual healing work and wanted a new career. And watching the transition wasn't as easy as he thought, only because the programming still was so rote. He was waiting for somebody to tell him what to do. And I was like, when you're going to make your own business, be an entrepreneur or set out, you don't have a plan book. You have to just go out and you have to work hard. You have to grind. You have to figure it out. You have to figure out the puzzle. And that sometimes takes an adjustment. I think that's where people get fear-based because they're just so used to, well, I do A, B, and C every day. That's what I do. I do A, B, and C every day. For me, what I try to encourage people is if they learn to meditate, the meditation, you get information. So he started, obviously he was a big meditator, but as he was working in the transition, he started meditating more and starting to say, oh, I'm getting it now. I'm hearing the voice. Go do this, or make this turn, or just, he's being guided if he allows himself to open up. But if the mind's just like, what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. If you just stay stuck there, you just stay stuck there. So I think when people are leaving their job or they are going through a transition, they have to realize that we all felt that fear. We never had a plan book. You're going to mess up, but you've got to do. Even if it doesn't make sense, even if it doesn't work, it's going to work because you're taking action and you're sending it out to the universe that you're taking action. And then that builds new muscles, new neuroways, new ways of thinking and working. So that transitions, I've been there a few times too.
I've been programmed my life has been prescribed. So my mom said, go to school, get an education. Once you get an education, you're going to get a really good job. You're going to get a big house, you're going to get married, have kids, and life is going to be just completely totally, utopia. And that was a lie. Now, I'm not saying that my mom intentionally lied to me.
Right.
I am saying that there were some things that my mom was told when she was a child
Sure.
and didn't know that as time moved on, we evolve. She also didn't take the time to realize that my characteristics, my personality, my thinking may be different than hers. I don't want to go to school and to have people tell me what to do. I think I could be okay if I make my own choices. My mom never thought that. You have to go to church. You have to go to school. You have to. So I grew up with that mentality that if my job doesn't tell me I'm promoted, I don't know how to efficiently. I wasn't given the tools as a child to either.
You weren't given playtime.
I wasn't given playtime. So either be promoted or step away from this and say, I'm going to be okay. You asked me a question. You asked me, how much do you make? And I told you. And you said, that's not a lot. And I had to think about that.
Well, and knowing your potential and knowing what I think you're capable of.
And I was just about to say that. It's not a lot based on the potential. And
based on the perspective of what you're giving up for it.
I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was good. I also allowed an entity to determine what is my worth and what I do.
And I used to do that, so I know.
So that conversation, preparing for an entire year and a half, was really getting aggressive with getting my debt down, saving, getting my credit score up, putting something aside so when I do walk away, I have something to hold me for another 2-3 months until I find something. And so it wasn't just important that I left. It was important to me on how I left. Everything, basically, if we work for someone, is on their terms. Your time.
Absolutely.
It's an exchange. And there's a high cost for that.
Yeah.
I had to walk away on my terms. And that was important to me because I just felt like I needed to get back control.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great that you set those. You know, I've had clients come to me and say, one in particular I'm thinking about, she said, I give you 2 years with me, 2 years. And then I want to leave a very high paying job and take a truck and drive across the country and start a new life in San Diego. So she lived in Pittsburgh at the time. So we worked on her trauma, we worked on herself, we worked on her self-esteem, 2 years came. She left a job that I think most people would have trouble leaving. It was a very cushiony, very good job. And she couldn't, it was a competitive job, so meaning she couldn't get another job, she'd have to leave the state. Right. She sold a house. She was single at the time. She wanted a partner. Right. And she had this really beautiful big house, and it wasn't really realistic to her. It was her in all these rooms. Right. And she drove to San Diego. She got a new job, and within a month she met her soulmate. And a new chapter really evolved, and it was really exciting. But she had a game plan.
Absolutely.
She had a game plan. I think, it depends on the soul. I don't think there's one way of doing it.
Sure, but having a plan does help because it keeps you focused.
Yeah.
If you have a plan, then it's only a matter of time before, meaning if you continue to go back to the plan,
right,
to continue to tweak a few things in your life will start to manifest to bring that plan into fruition.
Right. I mean, you were lucky to do it on your own. I think it can be beneficial to have a coach to keep you accountable.
That's true too.
So that's what I was to her.
Right. No, definitely.
Yeah, but you were able, because you were strong enough to just say, okay, this is what I'm doing.
But that's a plan too. When she came to you, she, in her mind, the first step is see a life coach.
Yeah.
Okay, so she came to you, then you set her on a path. How is she going to get to San Diego and meet a partner and all these things manifest if she doesn't think about it and make it a plan first?
Right.
So I have dreams.
Yeah.
How is the dream going to come into fruition if I'm at a desk all day in front of a computer talking on the phone?
Yeah.
Another 8.5 years could go by like that. I think
Yes.
the first 8.5 years went by.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more time flies.
Yeah.
I could have been in that position for another 10 years and still do the same thing, miss out on the opportunities that I was supposed to take because this is what I'm supposed to do. So you have to get up and lead. I mean, you can believe in miracles, but nothing is happening to your life if you don't take charge.
Right.
You can sit at your desk all day long and say something's going to happen somehow, some way, some miraculous thing is going to, and I'm going to leave this job. No.
No. From what I study, like I was telling you, I listen to people
all day long on impact theory. I'm a big fan, and it's a great show on YouTube. And every person on there, it's the same thing. Whatever circumstance it is, up or down, you've got to go to the grind. You've got to do it for yourself. You have to step up for yourself. And that's what I love about that show, because it just sends a message from different voices over and over again about that. So what is your goals for 2020? I mean, people always ask, what are your goals? But I mean, you've made this transition.
Right.
So I've had a vision for a while to really step out there and use my talents in filmmaking, in public speaking, in music, so forth and on, to save, well, not save, but make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing that right here with you.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be able to do that, not at this particular juncture, because I'll be at work.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I had the money, but I had no time.
Mm-hmm.
And I need the time to do all these things that I want to do. I want to really get out there, continue to spread the word about trauma, spread the word like we're doing now about not allowing fear to dictate your life or derail your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some public speaking. I really enjoy talking about health and wellness. And then continue to minimize. People do not want to talk about what you have to do in order to get to a place where you can tell your employer, you can take this job.
Yeah.
And you know what to do with it.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Fuck this job.
Yeah.
What I did was I minimized.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove here in a 1988 Honda Accord.
Love it.
8 out less.
Mm-hmm. Oh, big.
We can't have it both ways in this society. They want to keep us drowned in debt because they want us to keep more stuff.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that you can't have stuff, but get yourself to a position where you're not struggling. So I believe that moving forward, all those things that I sacrifice will eventually come. But right now, I'm going to focus on my passion, my purpose, and the other things I think will come later. What I was doing at my job was focusing on money and putting my passion and purpose on the back burner.
Right.
I never want to do that.
Right.
I want a job that I love, and they say if you find something that you love to do, you never work another day in your life.
Right. Absolutely.
So I basically left my job to work 50 hours a week, 70 hours a week, but it's not going to feel that way because it's an integral part of who I am.
Right.
And that's fine.
Right.
Money means a lot because society set it up that way where they always have us on the hamster wheel.
Absolutely.
And I was getting off work so depleted from the day, I didn't have anything. First of all, I didn't have the time because before you know it,
Yeah.
it's time to go to bed.
Yeah.
When you wake up and you find yourself constantly just grinding and moving, it's a rat race. And at the end of the day, I didn't really have anything that I could say, man, I made a difference here. And I'm sure my job I did make a difference, but it wasn't the way I want to make it.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
sacrifice is a big thing, and delayed gratification is a big thing. I think whatever we want in terms of material things will come, but we have to focus on what's really, really important first. And that's just being a good, genuine, loving, welcoming, warm person.
Mm-hmm.
The issue now is not politics. It's not everything else. The issue in this country is that we don't have enough love and empathy for one another.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us just don't have the time because we're on that rat race that I was talking about. Others just grew up in really bad situations and as adults had even worse situations and don't know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Others is just trying to get by. I'm trying to get mine. However you get yours, fine. But I have no time for empathy or compassion. I have a $5,000 mortgage. I have a $3,000, $400 car. No, I have 5 kids. We're so straddled, and we're so we have no time to even be human beings because we're on this cycle.
Yeah.
And so I don't want money. And I'm not here to say money is not important. Okay, whatever. But there are some things to me that takes priority.
Sure. Well, I think partly what I hear too, and I'm a minimalist, and I feel like even in my townhome, I have way too much stuff, which some people would probably argue. But in essence, it was a journey of getting rid of things, letting go of things. And part of that is because I work with families and I go into people's homes, and I see all their stuff, and their stuff has energy and it has memories and it's holding their mind back. I've watched when we get rid of things, we burn them, we release them, we give them away, how much clearer the mind becomes. So I do believe we're moving into a time period where people are shopping less, they're not buying into the media thing, they're downsizing for personal freedom, for quality of time, for intimacy, and so I think, and money is energy, so I think for me, money's a great thing, it's energy, it's how you use that energy. How are you going to use that energy? That's really where it's coming from.
You said something, and it gave me a thought, and I lost it that quick. So that
It'll come back.
you said something. You're a minimalist. Some people say you have too much stuff. What did you say after that?
I don't know. I spent years getting rid of things over and over again and releasing.
Got it. We have to understand that whatever we hoard, we have to understand if that's attached to a good memory or bad memory. And if it's attached to a bad memory, it may be worth letting it go.
And it's also defining good and bad, because even some people have memories of like, that was my great grandmother, but it's a physical item that maybe needs to just be released. Because what I try to teach my clients is it's not this or this, the physical things that we take with us when we go somewhere else, wherever that you believe that is. It is the essence of the energy and the memories in here. So for me, if I'm distracted by physical knickknacks all over the place, am I really praying and sitting and talking to my grandmother on the other side, asking for her guidance? So I think there can be a positive thing in releasing positive materialism as well. To really just free and clear the spirit so it can be and really start to explore the other side.
Even if it's a positive. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know for me, when my space is cluttered, it's a reflection of what I'm going through. So I believe everything has its place, and I believe everything should be clear. And when things are all over the floor, I know I'm going through something. I'm going through some emotional or mental issue because it's a reflection. My space is a reflection of what I'm going through.
Right.
Because I can't think straight if I'm working on a desk and I'm editing or what have you, and the desk is in disarray. I'm in disarray. My desk, my workspace is just a reflection of where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I do believe sometimes when we just have stuff because we want to hold on to it, just holding on to it and having it keep space, take up space and else can make you feel suffocated. Not only is it attached to a positive or bad memory, but it's just there. Like really think why you're holding on to it. Like my job. Why are you really holding on to it? Is it worth holding on to? What's the benefit of letting it go? And I think people just don't want to really think about it. They just want to hold on to stuff because, I guess it makes you feel good.
Well, and I think if people hear other people's stories, they can be inspired, or some people don't actually even know that's possible. So it just depends on their environment, depends on their exposure to what they're exposed to.
Right.
You know, I know years ago I wasn't exposed to half of this stuff and I was stuck.
Right.
You know, so, yeah.
There's a famous scene in Heat where Robert De Niro is talking to Al Pacino in a restaurant. And Robert De Niro says, if there's anything that you can't leave, like at a drop of a dime, it's 30 seconds or less, you gotta let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And
So true.
and I agree with that 110%. We're holding on to way too much stuff that if it came down to it, we really wouldn't be able to let it go. Because we have given it so much power.
Yeah.
A lot of these things shouldn't have power over us.
Right.
And so that's back to the job thing. I think sometimes we feel powerless, but we have more power than we think we do. Nothing should really...
Everybody has incredible amount of power. It's just knowing how to tap into it.
Yeah. I don't think we should give power to a lot of things that we do. And I found myself doing that. I said, okay, well, I got to take some of that power back. I believe we still live in a society where there are boundaries and constraints and rules and regulations. But even with that, I don't think our freedom is complete. We still have the power of choice. We still can make decisions to put us in better situations where we're not controlled.
Well, I think for me personally, I don't spend that much time focusing on that. I just focus on me.
Mm-hmm.
And my life and my experiences, and be the example. You know, be the example, because people are complex, tribes are complex, society's complex. But if I can, that's why I wrote my book, if I can share my story, if I can just be the example by sharing my situation and why I chose to do this and go into the healing arts, why I chose to do these sciences. You know, I woke up every day in chronic pain and did 3 hours of therapy on my own, nobody telling me what to do. And then, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Then people go, oh, Heather did that. Maybe I can do that. That's why I actually want to bring more of my clients and more stories to the table, because when people hear more of these stories of the warrior, of the people who made the choices, the road less traveled, then it'll become more common. Yeah. It'll become more mainstream.
I agree. Well, anything else you wanted to talk about today? Well, that's it for today. This is Heather Ferry, Let Me Get So Clear, and we're done.